So this is a video responding to Steve Shives and addressing Kamala Harris's policy shortcomings, if you will. So I did a little research into Steve Shives. The man's a buffoon. A bit of a buffoon. You know, I like the guy. I think I would agree with him on 95% of issues. But I get the feeling that if we got down to like specifics, we'd probably disagree on some specifics. From what I can tell, he's got a Bachelor of Arts in Creative Writing from a community college. So congratulations, Steve. He has no specialized knowledge nor skills in policy or political theory beyond what few courses he may have taken at his community college. As far as I could tell, he doesn't have any experience running a political campaign and has no professional life in politics whatsoever. His entire professional life appears to have been in YouTube. So, yeah. So as Steve is not here to defend himself, I'm going to tell you guys what my credentials are. I have an associate's from Highline Community College in Washington, not Washington, D.C., and a Bachelor of Arts in Sustainable Urban Development. Those are both. My associate's is in Political Science. My bachelor's is in Sustainable Urban Development. Bachelor of Arts from University of Washington, Tacoma. In that time, I studied political theory, international relations, housing policy, energy policy, urban ecology, etc., etc., etc. All these things very policy focused. During that time, I interned as a campaign staffer, worked on political campaigns, worked as a journalist for a newspaper, etc., etc. So I have some experience with politics. Although the campaigns I did work on, we lost. Though they were all progressives. Which should tell you something about how the Democratic Party works. Moving on. Steve's assessment of the baseball theory of politics and governance. His idea was that if you just rack up enough runs, basically enough wins, then people will vote for you. And I generally agree with this, but I would call it deliverism. Where I would disagree with Steve is that I don't think Democrats have really racked up that many wins in the past 10 years, 15 years even. Maybe even 20 years. I'm sure Steve would disagree with that, but let's keep it short, or as short as possible. Just since the Clinton administration, we've really failed to see Democrats deliver on anything. Consider the Biden and Obama administrations. Biden's main promise to young voters was student debt relief and a $15 minimum wage, and to strengthen union bargaining power. Those were three core promises during his 2020 campaign. Biden did have victories, like legislative victories, while he's still in office, but while he was in office, But these were the CHIPS Act, the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. But Biden dropped the $15 minimum wage, and the PRO Act was completely dropped, as was the Voting Rights Act. Sounds like Joe Biden dropped all those wins. And all those promises. Okay. So I'm going to come back to how he didn't rack up really any wins for anyone at all. But let's move on to Obama. So let's consider Obama for a moment. The ACA is considered a huge legislative victory. Benefits tons of people. Tons of people get medical care from this. It's a great thing. And certainly it's not objectively a bad thing. But it's one of those, it's a good thing, but there's some caveats. Take me, for example. I receive Medicaid, which is subsidized by the federal government. I can get my medications, because I have to take medications twice a day, mostly for free, unless the medications are massively expensive. But if I make $1 over $2,000 a month, I lose all of my benefits. Completely. And I have to pay for all of my medications. By the way, my rent is $1,600 a month. Wait a minute. That math is not working out now, is it? So this means I can either not work or I need to be homeless. So is the ACA really a win? Or do we have some kinks to work out here? It's at this point that I want to address Steve's issues and the Democrats' issues largely with the criticism that Kamala Harris is not really having any policies. Steve Shives, in a recent video, pointed out that Kamala Harris has a 41-page document filled with policies. And this is true. You can go through her entire policy platform, which is also the policy platform from the Democratic Party, and it will show you tons of policies, which I'm going to go through in a couple moments. And 41 pages sounds like it would be a lot. But I decided to look up my city's comprehensive plan, the city of Tacoma, Washington, which has a population of about 220,000 people. And the housing portion of that comprehensive plan alone, just the housing portion, is 31 pages. Kamala Harris's entire policy platform is 41 pages. Tacoma's entire comprehensive plan is just short of 700 pages. Now, I'm not saying that she has to have hyper-specific policies going, we know that she hasn't had, economic developers, urban planners, transport engineers, etc., working for years on a policy plan. But, something a little bit more than a $15 minimum wage, which, was requested by Occupy Wall Street back in 2008 and rejected by the Obama administration at that time, might be a good idea. Perhaps tying minimum wage to inflation. That was just off the top of my mind. What an idea. Okay, so Kamala Harris's policies, the policies that she does have, are not like objectively bad. Except for her foreign policy, which I will get into. Just give me a moment. Starting out with a $25,000 tax credit for first-time homebuyers. Considering the average home costs about $500,000 in the United States, and even condominiums are going to be starting out at probably $200,000, $250,000. It's going to cost your average, and the average U.S. income is $48,000. Assuming a person is able to put away a third of their income, that's $16,000. It's going to take, 16, 20 years to build that up. And get a home loan, 16 years working. Okay, so assuming no recession, no family emergencies, and very little inflation. Yep, it's going to take about 16, 17, 18 years to even gain access to that $25K. So that's really only going to help people who already have access to a lot of money. Not a great policy. Okay. The $15 minimum wage. This one's really easy to debunk. In fact, Joe Biden's Department of Housing and Urban Development has already debunked it. Kamala Harris has promised to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Her home state has a higher minimum wage already. But it doesn't help anyone. The Biden administration's Department of Housing and Urban Development has already pointed out that a person working 40 hours a week making $15 an hour cannot afford rent in a single state, not in a single county in the United States. So it's a pointless measure. Okay, moving on to Medicare for All / universal health care and all of her healthcare policies. Harris, in 2016, stated that she would be in favor of Medicare for All. She has since rescinded that, so no. And I want to point out that some of this is not going to be part of my tested knowledge. And it's going to be I'm going to give you some knowledge that just comes from my experiences, as well as stuff that's just sort of general knowledge, along with my collegiate knowledge, that stuff that I've learned. 2024, Harris has withdrawn support for the Medicare for All. She has, however, said that she will enhance the Affordable Care Act, however, and that she'll accelerate negotiations to cover more drugs and lower prices for Americans. What that will mean, it's not entirely clear. One thing that she has given as a specific is that she wants to maintain the $35 cap on insulin. So this sounds like a good thing on the surface. These policies are better than her opponent's policies. Indeed, in a vacuum, these policies are beneficial. The reality is somewhat mixed again. And it's likely that these policies will have what are called negative externalities. Basically, her intention was good. She's intending to intervene with good intent, but it's going to cause a bad reaction. Thinking of adding a traffic sign and it causing a traffic accident instead of stopping traffic accidents, that sort of thing. So why would maintaining the $35 insulin cap actually cause more economically harmful effects to Americans? So the least offensive thing is the $35 insulin cap. For one thing, if you read Dr. Melissa J. Barber of Doctors Without Borders study, it's called Estimated Sustainable Cost-Based Prices for Diabetes Medicines. She and her colleagues found that Ozempic, which was originally a diabetes medication, a type 2 diabetes medication, if I'm not mistaken, could be produced with a 50% profit and still be sold for $4.73. Should be noted that the current price of Ozempic in the US is about $1,000. So now that I've established just how profit-driven pharmaceutical companies are, I'm going to predict that what will happen under the Harris administration. Yes, she will get these drug companies to negotiate. The pharma companies will absolutely comply with Medicare negotiations. However, said companies, well, then they're not going to be like, oh, shoot, we're going to take a loss on insulin. Oh, well. They're going to take a look at their back catalog and be like, I wonder if we could increase the prices on bronchodilators and simvastatins. We could increase the prices on those by 25%. Yes, that will increase our profit by another 25%. Yes. This is all perfectly predictable and how it works. I'm going to point out that bronchodilators right now, they range from, $20 to $70. And greed isn't the only problem. As the price of drugs increases, people with medical conditions will need to stretch medication supplies, either because they can't afford medication, either because they can't afford a new supply of medication, or because their insurance now only partially covers the drug which they need to survive. In the end, the Kamala Harris policy does not do a great job of further empowering people who are already disadvantaged. So this is not the only policy. This is not only an issue, because there is a policy which would solve all of these issues I have highlighted, and it's Medicare for all. It's freaking Medicare for all, a policy which freaking Kamala Harris has withdrawn from. It's like, whoa, hey, how could we solve all of these issues? And no, let's be dicks. She's chosen like literally the worst policy, like literally every time. So moving on to her foreign policy. Before I describe Kamala's foreign policy, which is best described as civilian murder, I want to provide a few definitions of command responsibility. According to Cornell Law School, command responsibility is the jurisprudential doctrine in international law, criminal law, permitting the prosecution of military commanders for war crimes perpetuated by their subordinates. The first legal implementations of command responsibility are found in the Hague Conventions 4 and 10. So the ICC, the International Criminal Court, has a much longer definition, which is mostly similar, although it does include political officials, such as the Emperor of Japan, elected officials, etc. Basically anyone who can command an army, and allows for different situations. The one which we care about for this video is, and which best fits Kamala Harris's situation, is acts of omission, which the ICC defines as the perpetrator failed to take the necessary and reasonable measures within his or her power to prevent or repress the commission of such crimes, or failed to submit the matter to the competent authorities for investigation and prosecution. It should be noted, however, that the ICC's definition, under the ICC's definition, both Joe Biden and Tony Blinken would also be implicated. The U.S. is the primary provider of arms and munitions used by the Israeli Defense Forces. It has been independently verified by the United Nations and other agencies that the Israeli military is targeting civilians and other non-combatants, such as journalists, medics, human aid workers, and further. Israel is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, committing acts of genocide in Palestine. This has been confirmed by experts, and legal cases accusing Israel of genocide have been brought by multiple states in the International Court of Justice. Kamala Harris has taken no action to stop the genocide. She has not resigned her position in protest. She has not moved to enact the 25th Amendment to remove Joe Biden. Harris hasn't even made the suggestion that if elected, she would cut off military aid to Israel. Harris has knowingly provided arms and comfort to a genocidal regime and refused to take any action to stop said genocide. According to treaties signed by the United States, she is directly responsible for every death that has taken place in Gaza. So, now that I have addressed the very big elephant in the room, I want to address one further elephant. Are you a misogynist or a racist for not voting for Kamala Harris? No, as I've outlined, there are a lot of reasons not to vote for Kamala Harris. Not the least of which is she is guilty of committing genocide. She's objectively guilty. No. I mean, even if you don't believe that she's guilty of committing genocide, on a policy level, she's at best a wash. She's not that great of a candidate. So what's the conclusion we can take away from this? Well, Harris claims to want to create an opportunity economy, but her own Department of Housing, or that of her predecessor, I guess you could say, has pointed out flaws in her own policies. Yet Kamala Harris just sits back and sips her wine and just like, oh well, we're just trying a little bit. We don't want to change too much. Harris claims to want to do something about housing, but even the limited assistance that she's would offer is only beneficial to people who really are already homeowners. Or are in really privileged positions. And I want to stress that the policies that she's putting forward are not objectively bad. Well, except for the civilian murder, that's objectively bad. But what Harris is doing is putting Band-Aids on a gunshot wound and hoping that it's going to be enough to save someone's life. But we're past that. We can't keep putting Band-Aids on the gunshot wound. That is American society. Thank you.